What up YouTube? Welcome back to the Jung Show. And today I want to tell you all a little secret about my artistic journey. I do not like to draw complex things. Look, I already know what you guys are gonna say. As a concept artist, I'm supposed to be able to do all this crazy stuff and draw ships and mecha and humans and vehicles and castles and all that cool stuff. But the truth is, I really don't like to do that very much. See, I get really excited when I look at something at first and I go in my mind and I say, I will defeat you. And I'm gonna do this awesome epic drawing that no one's ever seen before. And then I just get stuck and I don't know what I'm doing. And then I start questioning my life choices and I start thinking, maybe I shouldn't have been an artist. Maybe I should have been an accountant. And then from that point forward, I start having these daydreams about flipping my table, walking out the room and never coming back. And so I want to share with you guys some of the things that I've learned over the years that have really helped me to sort of get over this fear of drawing complex things. Because believe me, getting out of my comfort zone was not the easiest thing. You can ask some of my teachers. So the basic thing that I want to teach you is to learn how to see basic shapes in everyday life. Now, first things first, there are 5 basic shapes in anything in this world. You have the sphere, the cube, the cylinder, the cone, and the pyramid. Every single shape, every single object that you can think of in this known universe is going to be made up of one or more of these shapes, or it's going to be based off of one of these shapes. Maybe you remove the top portion of the pyramid, or maybe the sphere is cut in half or something like that, but the principles still apply. Now, one of my favorite artists to learn from is a man named Andrew Loomis, and he has plenty of books out there, and the book that I'm going to be referring to loosely is his book Successful Drawing. Now, Andrew Loomis said this in one of his books, that the key to successful drawing is to have intelligent perception. And what he means by that is that you need to understand color, proportion, value, height, length, depth, all these different things that are basically making up the world that we live in. Those are all incredibly important for us to understand in order to create a solid drawing. And unfortunately, what happens with artists who aren't so experienced or who are beginners, they don't really have that heightened perception just yet. And so the whole goal of drawing or painting or doing any sort of art, especially when you're trying to do something a little bit more realistic or something that's aesthetically pleasing to the eye, you're going to need to learn how to balance all these things. So technically that will mean that a bad or an unsuccessful drawing comes from some sort of deformity or distortion of any one of these principles that we named. If you're walking down the street and you see someone's body and half of it is taken up by just their head alone, you know something is off about this person. But in a cartoon, that might not be the worst thing in the world. Now, the idea of intelligent perception is actually partially responsible for the reason why we see faces and random objects all over the world, whether there be some scraps of metal or a wall socket or something like that. I'll give you another example. With something like proportion, we can understand the difference between a small dog like a Chihuahua and a puppy. In his book, Andrew Loomis says, when drawing is convincing to be the intelligent perception of the spectator because of its rightness of form, texture, space, and lighting, and at the same time appeals to his emotions, the artist can depend upon a favorable response. Talking about a favorable response to the work. So if you can create that response by accurately depicting all these things, your drawings are instantly going to look better. So let's take each one of these objects that I mentioned before, and we're going to break down some things that exist in our real world, and you're going to see how they can apply. First off, we'll take something simple. We'll start with the sphere. The sphere can be a ball, like a basketball or a baseball or a tennis ball or volleyball. Same with the planet or even the human head, which is why a lot of you guys might see artists such as myself, whenever I start drawing a head, I start with the round shape, which will represent the cranium. Now, the next shape we can talk about is the cube. Cubes can be put into dice or a Rubik's Cube, which is kind of self-explanatory just in the name by itself, a present or a gift, or even if you were to squish it down, you can make it into a laptop. See, the cool thing about understanding these basic shapes is you can adjust them. You can make them wider or taller. So even something that is slim, like a laptop or a TV or desktop computer, you can figure out how to make anything look like it comes from the real world just by using these basic shapes. Cylinder shapes. There's poles, cooking pots, soda cans, drum kits, a battery, even arms and legs are all based off cylindrical shapes. Now cylinders are a little interesting because there's a whole thing about making ellipses and circles and stuff. So if you guys are interested, comment down below and I'll make a separate video about how to approach that. There's also cone shapes. So think about the orange cone that you see when you're driving down the street, or you could draw a carrot with the cone shape, telescopes, ice cream cones, Santa Claus hats, or even a birthday hat. And there's even certain cultural hats, like in Asian communities and African communities, that are kind of based off of this shape as well. Now pyramid shapes are another interesting one because you can make pyramids. Yeah, you guys saw that one coming. But you can also make things like tents or cell phone towers out of pyramid shapes, or something like the Eiffel Tower. You just take the basic pyramid shape and elongate it. That's really all it is. So now that I've given you that basic understanding, what I want to do now is I'm going to take some random objects that I just find online, and I'm going to show you how to see these basic shapes, because I think it might be helpful for me to say that, but for me myself, I'm a visual learner, and so I want to show you guys how to actually break these things down so that you can apply it to your own drawings. So the first thing you guys are going to see me draw is a chess pawn, and I'm starting out with the sphere for the top portion of it, and then the middle section, or the main section of it, is basically a cylinder shape that just has a curve at the bottom of it to kind of push it out, so it's more narrow at the top and then wider at the base. And then at the very base of the pawn is going to be basically two round cylinder shapes, and all I'm doing is stacking them on top of each other. Now, obviously, some things are changed, some things are stretched, some things are exaggerated just a bit to get the exact look that I want, but that's something that's gonna be very common for you guys as you're drawing. Oftentimes, you're not gonna have the perfect geometric shape every single time, and that's totally okay. That's where you just have to learn to adjust and adapt as an artist. And so here you see me just adding a couple bits of shading and value so that it just feels a little bit more three-dimensional. Nothing super crazy. As you can see, these drawings aren't going to be perfect. You know, I already see issues as I'm looking at it, and the point of this is just really to create an exercise for myself and to show you guys what the possibilities are. So now I'm going to be doing an arm. So this is also going to be based off of spheres and cylinder shapes. And I guess the hand would be something a little bit more like boxy and like a cube. But you see how I started off with the basic sphere for the joint, so the shoulder and then the elbow, and then the cylinder is basically the arm and the forearm sections of it. Now, obviously, because of the complexity of the arm, I'm adding in muscles like the biceps and triceps and, you know, brachioradialis and all that stuff. And I could go into so much more detail describing these shapes, but really the human body is also made up of very basic, simple geometric shapes as well. And so I didn't feel the need to go into all that much detail. And this is also how I think about figure drawing when I am trying to go very quickly. It's just really, really helpful to think of things like this. And so now I'm moving into more of a cone shape specifically. And what do you know? I am drawing an orange construction cone. Nothing all that fancy. So it's got the cone as at the base. It's cut off at the top because it's not pointed. And then at the base, I basically have a cube that has been squished to the nth degree to make it look very flat like that. And that's really all it is. It's incredibly simple. All right, this next object is going to be a Rubik's Cube, and you know, I just drew the simple cube shape, nothing super fancy. And then if you want to make it a Rubik's Cube specifically, then you just have to divide it into threes on the top and side, and that's basically it. I think the most challenging part is just making sure you get the right perspective, which you guys saw me already erase and fix up. So yeah, and I think I drew this at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. I probably need to get a better schedule for whenever I produce these videos for you guys. But yeah, again, these are not meant to be perfect drawings. That's not the goal of this. It's just to get the idea for what is what. Okay, so this next one is going to be a laptop. And so because the laptop, when it's open at least, is, you know, it's two basically square shapes, I took the cube, I pressed it in, and I put it in perspective, and that's really all it is. When you squish it, that's what gives it its thickness. And some computers like Macs or something are incredibly thin, but I wanted to do a bulkier one, like a laptop from the early 2000s or the late 90s or something like that, just because it's more fun to draw, and I think it'll help explain the example a lot better. But you could do the same exact thing for like a really bulky TV before we had all the flat screens and stuff. You could do the same thing there, or you can do it for old school computer, or what else is a cube shape? A table, a couch, anything that kind of has that basic square shape is going to work really, really well for you. And it doesn't have to be all that complicated. I think when we see these things, when we see all the detail that they have in real life, we get intimidated, and I include myself in that category. But if you just learn to see things for what they really are and just say, you know what, that's a sphere, that's a cube, that's a pyramid, that's a cylinder, I think it's going to really, really help you guys out, because when you're intimidated to draw something, it can be very crippling. And I know that from firsthand experience. I was afraid to draw so many things because of fear. And so if you can break down that fear and put it into a language that you can understand very simply, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So this last one, I'm sort of mixing cube shape. Is basically an elongated cube to get that rectangular look, and then it's a pyramid on the top to basically create this obelisk. And I also have a cube shape that's more equal on all sides, so that creates this sort of pedestal stand with this obelisk shape, like something you might see in ancient Egypt, or I think there might be some obelisks in the Vatican as well. But yeah, it's pretty simple. So you guys can see my whole process just like that. Also guys, comment down below and tell me which things you struggle with drawing, and if I get enough of them, maybe I'll do a whole video by itself on how I'd approach those specific objects. Thank you all for checking out today's video. I really, really appreciate it. If you guys want to continue to support the Joe McFo Show, check out my Patreon, and please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and all that cool stuff. Really, really helps the channel out. Also guys, I just gotta show this off. Check that out. We are official, the Joe McFo Show. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Peace.